Wow. I mean, you just have to sit back and kind of take a step back after that game, because that was one of the greatest playoff games that I've ever seen. Ravens end up getting out of Denver with a 38-35 win. Ray Lewis's career is continued for at least another week, and the Baltimore Ravens, led by Joe Flacco today, Anquan Bolden, Torrey Smith, they head to the AFC title game. And to really recap this entire video, I would probably, or this entire game I should say, I would probably lose everyone's attention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the things that I know people want to hear from this game. I wrote notes down from the entire game, but to be quite honest with you, it would take forever. So this game was over. The Broncos had gotten the lead. It was all done. It was a third down, and then the Broncos defense has a collapse that is not Jack Del Rio's fault. It's not John Fox's fault. It's not Peyton Manning's fault. It's no one's fault except the Broncos secondary absolutely collapsing. You can't blame Jack Del Rio, at least not for that play. They sent three, and then somehow Jacoby Jones gets behind the secondary to make a catch that just erupted America, really, because I was watching this game just kind of counting down, getting ready for Packers and 49ers, and to see that ball actually pulled down by Jacoby Jones and how open he got, and to see him then salute the crowd with the kiss, send this game pretty much in overtime. The Broncos end up kneeing the ball, which a lot of people are going to say, well, what was a stupid move and came back to hurt them. Quite honestly, though, I'm thinking you're not in great field position, and if Peyton Manning throws an interception, it could be a pick six that ends your season. In the end, though, we go to overtime. Goes back and forth. Both teams called a pretty conservative amount, or they called pretty conservative plays in overtime, and then Peyton Manning makes one bad play. The offensive line for the Denver Broncos breaks down. Peyton Manning rolls out of him. Peyton Manning has to run. That is certainly not his strength. He's getting forced towards the sideline. He probably should have just gotten rid of it. But late in overtime, you begin to get restless. You begin to think, at some point here, the Ravens are going to end up doing something to end our season. I have to make a great play here. That's probably what's going through Peyton Manning's mind. He tries to force a ball into, I think it was Eric Decker. It ends up getting picked off by the Ravens. And all the Peyton Manning people, all the Peyton Manning haters, naysayers, everything, they're back after a 2-year absence. And I'm going to get to my exact thoughts on Peyton Manning. Ray Rice then sets them up in field goal position to win this game. And the Baltimore Ravens, on a Justin Tucker, who is one of the best rookie kickers, him and Greg Zuerlein are two of the best rookie kickers that I've ever seen. He comes up with a huge field goal to win this game and send the Baltimore Ravens to their second straight AFC title game. I mean, that leaves out so much from this game. It leaves out the incredible first quarter that was back and forth. It leaves out the Ravens ending up scoring on a great catch by Torrey Smith before halftime. It leaves out the Ravens coming back to tie this one at 35, or doesn't leave that out. It leaves out the Ravens coming back to tie this at 28 to end the third quarter. And it was one of those games where you don't want to see either team lose. It was an incredible game, and you would have liked to see both of these teams have a chance to go on. But then Peyton Manning throws an interception. And really what I want to say about this is it should have never gotten to that point. And there's a lot of other times where I've said in Peyton Manning's career that the playoff record, it's not very fair. His teams were just not as good as look at some of the teams that Peyton Manning has lost to in the playoffs, and you see that regular season-wise, his teams were very good. But when it came down to the playoffs, when you really have to match up offense versus defense, defense versus offense, none of those Colts teams were as good as the New England Patriots teams they were playing against. It reminds me of LeBron James in Cleveland. One guy, and it wasn't just one guy, but he was the biggest piece that was leading them to those points. And that's why I was never very critical of Peyton Manning in those huge situations. In this case, I can't singularly put the blame on Peyton Manning because the Broncos should have never allowed the game to get to overtime. should have never happened, and Peyton Manning transformed this team to even put them in a position to have the #1 seed. But you know what? The bottom line is that was a terrible pass by Peyton Manning. I've seen people be critical of it on Twitter, and the one that really surprised me was Tony Dungy, who was his head coach in Indianapolis for pretty much his entire career. And it just blows your mind what you just saw, because that was probably, if not the greatest game, it was one of the best games that I've ever seen. A double overtime football game. Now, some people have pointed out to me on Twitter that the Rams and Panthers game, I don't even know when exactly this was. It was obviously well before my lifetime, because the Rams were still in LA at that time. It went to double overtime. To see a football game go to double overtime, absolutely insane. Then let me go back to the fourth quarter for a second, though, because I'm thinking in the fourth quarter, okay, Ray Lewis's career is going to be over. The Broncos have just taken this lead. They're not going to give it back. Ray Lewis's career is going to be over. Joe Flacco, who said he was a lead and one of the best quarterbacks before the season, he's going to catch heat. And then all of a sudden, Joe Flacco comes back out and he makes a tremendous... I don't want to say that he got lucky. He kind of did, that the Broncos secondary collapsed that much, but you still have to take advantage of the opportunity that you get. Joe Flacco did that, and Joe Flacco deserves a lot of credit for some of the big throws that he made in this game. He certainly got a bunch of help. Dennis Pete had some big catches. Not a ton, but he had some big catches. You see Anquan Bolden had a big game. Torrey Smith had a gigantic first half, and his offensive line, I think, played better than the Denver Broncos offensive line, especially in crunch time. So a bunch of credit does go to Joe Flacco for the performance that he put out there today. When he gets down 7-0, he stays resilient. When it seems like everything is done and the game is over late, Joe Flacco stayed resilient to get this team into overtime. And then in overtime, was he very productive? No, he was not. But to continue to stay that resilient when in the back of your head you know that one bad throw, one overthrow here, and I'm going to hear from critics for an entire offseason. I got to give a lot of props to Joe Flacco, but you also do have to give a lot of props to Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden, who has had a tremendous first 2 games of the playoffs. Ray Rice, who came on in overtime after the first 4 quarters where he really didn't produce all that well, and he ends up having a great overtime to put them in position to win the game. And then Justin Tucker for kicking that field goal. You give a lot of props to the leadership on this Ravens team, because defensively, this team was worn out in the fourth quarter, which is what allowed the Broncos to even take the lead. They were worn out. They were tired in the fourth quarter, and they were still able to hang in there, hang with that Broncos offense, keep them off the board long enough, and then when Peyton Manning made a mistake, they capitalized on it, and they were able to come away with the win today. One final thing I want to say, anyone who says that, oh, well, Tim Tebow won a playoff game last year, and Peyton Manning lost, so it looks like we know who the better quarterback is. You should never be allowed to watch a sporting event again in your life. Don't put all the blame on Peyton Manning. Certainly, though, some does go on him for this game. A majority of it, in my mind, because he got some help in the regular, or in the first 4 quarters, I should say, with a punt return and a kick return for a touchdown. And in overtime, he didn't get it done. That's the bottom line. He did not get the job done when he needed to, and the Denver Broncos, after a tremendous season, are headed home, and the Baltimore Ravens are headed to the AFC title game. I'll see you guys later.